And welcome to the Midday Show, right on time. Mark going for the fridge, perfect timing. The race to 2024, is it inevitable? Is Biden-Trump happening whether we want it or not? Celebrity divorces, do they actually have it easier than the rest of us? And then home run cut-ins, people are complaining, I'm complaining. You're going to have to try to justify to me that I should have to watch Aaron Judge hit home runs. What do you say to that?
Yes.
All that and more on today's Midday Show. Mark, how are you feeling today?
Awesome.
That song is just, that's what it's always going to be. Dylan Rock up on Spotify. Check out the track. Awesome. That is going to be your response now every single time.
Haven't you, when we just talked, I look down, right? Because you start the drum roll and I get a little anxious. And I look down and I don't have a drink.
Yes.
I just did this at a JV football game the other night.
I know.
If you have an extra jacket. Sitting there that you don't put on yet, you feel warmer.
You feel fine.
Once you put your last one on and you know there's no more, so just having a drink next to me makes me feel less thirsty. If I had none, I would be.
I get it. It's just, it would be like you running to the car as the football game's about to start because you realize
I do understand that. It is a little ridiculous. But anyway, that as it may.
The race to 2024, here's the question for today. And we can talk about Biden a little bit. We can talk about Trump a little bit. The question really is the rematch inevitable? If you're listening and you want to comment, let us know if you feel like this is where we're heading, whether we want it or not. 2024. Apparently, at some point, as I understand it, Joe Biden let it slip that he does plan. Not that I think most of us, I felt like he was going to run. Did you feel like he was going to run?
That's not an easy question to answer.
Okay.
Have we had a president in modern whatever who could run, who didn't run?
Okay. I felt like he was going to run.
I kind of thought that he was, because of his age, immediately, I thought when he won in 2020, I thought there's no way he's running again in 2024.
Sure.
And then, shall we say, he stumbled out of the gate.
Sure.
But he has picked up some speed in the approval ratings and stuff. So I don't know.
So he let it slip. Apparently there was a conversation with Jesse Jackson, the Reverend Jesse Jackson.
I will not eat grain, eggs, and ham.
Apparently he let it slip to Jesse Jackson that what he intended to run in 2024, which is technically news. He hadn't himself actually announced that he had planned to run in 2024. Jesse Jackson, of course, being the walking microphone that he is, let the media know that the president had told him this. So then the media brought it to President Biden's attention, and President Biden essentially said yes, that he does intend to run in 2024. So it kind of stirred up this idea. We're getting to the end of 2022. Midterms are on the way. It's almost 2023. I'm looking at you today, and I am telling you, I feel like it is inevitable. I feel like obviously, there are things in the works on both sides to whether or not this will happen. I do think there's a faction in the Democratic Party that would prefer and doesn't want Biden to run again. I believe that there's a faction in the Republican Party that hopes that Trump does not run again. And then obviously on both sides, there are factions of people that want them to both run again. I just feel like this is inevitable. I feel like it's happening regardless of what people want.
The interesting thing on the Trump side, he moves the needle more than anyone else. There's no doubt about it. I just read an article today that this is what I find funny. We're in the news business, so but it said Trump, his aides say that he talks about DeSantis more than he talks about any other candidate. Well, of course, because he's his biggest competition.
Absolutely.
So who else would he talk about? That was like,
he's a fascinating topic too. DeSantis of do you run or do you not? Because you want to ride the momentum, but you also, Trump is just going to swing everything he has.
Correct.
And so the DeSantis choice is kind of fascinating as well.
Correct. So, and then on the Biden side, I don't think the Democrats have someone like the Republicans have DeSantis.
Sure.
So maybe Biden seems so inevitable because you don't know who else it's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be Kamala. I don't know who else it would be.
Do you remember a couple months ago there was the Newsom stuff kept coming up? He was making trips to DC, and that was there was like a month span.
Who DeSantis was?
No, Newsom.
Oh,
Gavin Newsom, because you were talking about like people that could possibly run instead of Biden. There was like a month span. This would have been like midsummer, where people like Newsom was in DC, and there were kind of all these rumors about whether or not he was eyeing it up. But that is like recently gone to the wayside.
away. Yeah. Well, I told you before when, because I had heard that it was announced that Biden says he's going to run again.
Yeah.
And this is where my brain went. Why now, with midterms coming up in a month?
Yeah.
There must have been some think tank on the Democratic side that said this is the time to announce it, because for some reason they don't want to go in. So I did all this, like hypothesizing.
Sure.
Why now, and who would have thought this, and what are the pros and what are the cons, and why? And then you come in, you're like, no, he was talking to Jesse Jackson, and I guess he thought it was off the record, and Jesse leaked it.
Multiple sources have said that this was a conversation that he had, and the people who had asked the question in the media were referring to a conversation that they had with Jesse Jackson, in which he implied the president had said this.
Right.
So, and again, like for me, I don't think it's like shocking news, but it is I think it's sneaky how quickly this stuff happens. Like as I get older, the idea of 4 years is like used to be an eternity to me. Oh, that's 4 years away.
Right.
As the older I get, the more I begin to realize like it's not a terribly long cycle. By the time you're 2 years into it and you're already talking about, and here's the crazy part. We're almost at the end of 2022. So we're even further along than halfway.
Right.
And so it is kind of knocking on the doorstep. And I think these midterms, for a lot of people, for a lot of different reasons, these midterms are unbelievably important. It's unreal. The one thing that America does have in common, like we talk about how divisive both sides are, the one thing that America does have in common is regardless of what your cause is or what you believe, most people feel these midterms really, 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 really.
No, I agree.
So I look at that and I think about it's almost sweeping kind of the 2024 conversation under the rug a little bit because people really, really believe these midterms matter. So I do think it's knocking on the door sooner than later. The Biden stuff kind of slipping. And I just took a step back last night and this morning and I said, oh my God, like if it was today, like if we were doing this today, I think it would be Biden and Trump. I think we would run it back again.
And I'm with you. If it was today, I'm with you. One of the things that the Democratic Party has to consider, just from a historical, not that I'm a political scientist,
sure,
but
I'm not either. Right?
No, okay. And that's why we're good for this conversation because the people listening aren't either. But if you're curious enough to look at this, if Biden runs again and wins, the Democrats have to look at history and say, then we're losing in 2028.
History
because it is flip-flop back and forth. The only time in like the last 60 plus years was Reagan, Bush. And Bush only won once. And then he lost as a first-term president, which doesn't happen very much. You can blame Ross Perot and all that stuff, but that's the history of it. Clinton, from the Democrat side, Clinton was seen as a good president, and they kind of thought that Al Gore could ride that wave, and he still lost.
Yeah.
From the Democrat side, they thought Obama was a good president, and they thought he could kind of ride that wave. From the Republican side, they thought the second Bush was a good president, and they could follow up and ride the wave. And none of them have been able to do it.
Right.
So when you go 8 years with someone, it is no matter how popular they are. And right now on the Democratic, well, even on any side, Biden is not as popular as Bush or Obama or Clinton. In a general sense, obviously, whatever side of the rock or the aisle you're on, you hate the other guy. But so there has to be this thought of, can Biden win in 24 is obviously thought number one, but understanding the way the world, it's like if you win the Super Bowl, you get last pick in the draft.
Sure.
If he wins twice in a row, history says we're going to lose.
No, it's a fascinating point. I hadn't thought about that cycle of, I've just always been thinking about it in 4 years lately, just because of how, I mean, it's fair to say if we run this back again with Trump and Biden, I'm not saying people won't have a favorite. I'm not saying people won't know who they want to vote for on both sides. But I think you're going to see a lot of people walking around like, how are we doing this again? And I'm not just referring to 2020, like even going back to like 2016.
Right.
I think this would be, I would feel very comfortable saying, as a very young person with not a ton of experience, there has to be an unprecedentedness to 3 straight elections where people are kind of looking around and going like, how did we get here? Like, how did this?
No, I'm with you.
And so that will be, that to me is the interesting thing of Biden running again, is like, are we really, if it's Trump and Biden again, are we really doing this for a third time where both sides are kind of looking at each other like, listen, I know, like, I get it, but like, I don't know what else to say.
It's like Rocky and Apollo Creed.
This is who my party put in front of me. So like, this is what we're doing.
Well, and the other thing, to take it to the other side of the aisle,
Yeah.
the Republicans know if they run Trump and he wins, he can't win again.
Yeah.
So
Which is
we've
interesting.
elected a lame duck. And then do they think it would be better to get Trump followed by DeSantis if he can hold the momentum? Or would it be better to put DeSantis in 2024, hoping that he could win 2 in a row?
Sure.
So those are all from the political science gurus.
Yeah.
And they're all just extrapolating because we're at an unprecedented time.
Sure. It's in the timing aspect of it. I would love to ask like Fitzgerald or something. I got to start making a list for when he comes on again. I would like to ask him about just the timing of presidencies and how, like, to me, there are years where the presidency, you want to win it because there's a sense of like things are going in the right direction. You and I kind of agreed, like in 2020, I mean, it didn't matter. Red, blue, purple, green. I mean, it did not matter. You were going to have your hands full. I felt the same way in 2008. You were going to have your hands full with everything that was going on. I do wonder if they look at this 2024 and say, like, is this a year where your hands are full when you come in? Or is this a year where, like, so that part of it's interesting as well.
And you're right. People don't give enough. I remember when I was in college and I had an economics class, because my one economics class to fill my curriculum. And the professor said that what some of the things that happened in the inflation during the Jimmy Carter was not his fault.
Sure.
And that it was just bad timing. Just like COVID, we've discussed here multiple times. If COVID doesn't show up, we both think Trump would have won again.
I think Trump wins. Yeah,
and
I do.
So it's not his fault that COVID showed up.
It just
happened. That knocked him out, and it was at the wrong time. And then, yes, Biden inherited stuff then that wasn't his fault. Sure. And we do blame. It's a lot like blaming coaches and quarterbacks. And there's a lot of other things that come into play that it's not just simply there's circumstance that really affect these guys unfairly. Or, as you said, some guys just walk in and the cupboard's full.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. A quick shout out to the Genetti in downtown Williamsport. Windows on 4th as well. The windows are closed, but the kitchen and the bar are not. So be sure to stop by. It
is a neat summertime because we walk, because it's close to us. We walk by all the time, and in the summertime, it is neat with the windows open and the people sitting on the street. But yeah, the restaurant's still open all winter, and it is kind of new and updated and fantastic, and it is a landmark. It is an institution. I've got my buzzwords, the ones that I struggled for so much. It is. I like how the picture that you used is lit up because it is the Hollywood sign. Yeah, a little bit of what we are.
That's what it looks like. Celebrity divorces. In case you're under a rock and you didn't get to see it, Tom Brady and Gisele Bündchen have both put lawyers on retainer.
You have the Pat. He's in the Pats uniform.
Well, creative license. I was trying.
That's true. That's true. Understood.
I was trying to do the right thing.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. Stuff. Celebrity divorces. Essentially, what's happened is they become public knowledge. They haven't even announced yet that they're getting divorced. All the information that's coming out is more or less the actual filings that they have put lawyers on retainer. I don't think either lawyer has actually filed Tom Brady is asking for divorce or Gisele Bündchen is asking for divorce. The two of them have literally just put divorce attorneys on retainer.
Here's my question.
Okay.
Do you think I have a shot?
With Gisele Bündchen.
I was a quarterback. She likes quarterbacks. Tom was pretty good.
Here's what I would
pretty
say.
good.
I don't know.
He went to Michigan where they were blue and gold with an M.
Yeah.
I went to Montoursville where they were blue and gold with an M. There's a lot of parallels here.
But see, that might not be a good thing, because I think one of the interesting things is he said he was going to retire. He said he was going to spend more time with his family. And that clearly did not happen. He came back, everything else. She might be looking for the opposite of Tom Brady. She might be looking for somebody who wasn't a quarterback. She might be looking for somebody who's not a sports guru. She might want somebody who wants to watch Grey's Anatomy on a Sunday, Sunday evening.
Well, listen, again, as we had our similarities,
Yeah.
if she's looking like professionally, he had great success. I have not. So we are opposites in that aspect. So I don't know. I'm just asking you, spitballing ideas. Do you think I have a shot? Here's what you just said. Oh, this is what I can't believe. Well, again, you hear the reports, and I know we're going to get to your point here in a second, which is interesting. I have to believe there were struggles before this.
Yes.
I don't think this would have pushed him over the edge. And one of the things that I was thinking was, if there was already friction and it was already tension, and he's like, listen, I'm going to retire at the top of my game. Because remember, he led the NFL in passing yards last year.
Okay.
It wasn't Josh Allen. It wasn't Aaron Rodgers. It was Tom Brady.
Okay.
So he's still obviously playing at a high level. And there had to be a point, if there was just unhappiness all the time. You think he comes home and it's like, yay, Dad's here. There might have been a point where he's like, I came home to this. Like, this sucks. And so I'm wondering if because they're saying the divorce, part of the divorce is being caused because he went back. And I'm wondering if it's not the whole chicken and the egg, if he went home and was like, we're heading for divorce, I'm miserable, I might as well go back and play.
And play football. It's fair. Just for a timeline for you, I probably should have read this to you before. So up until 2021, everything seemed fine. February 1st, 2022, Tom Brady announced that he was retiring. March 2022, Brady unretires with Bunchin's initial support. So originally she came out and she was supportive of him possibly playing. In September of 2022, she expressed concerns about Brady's return to the NFL. In September of 2022 as well, Brady retires again to focus on marital and familial obligations. In September 16th, they decided to split. They spent almost 6 weeks apart. And then in October, they have now reportedly hired divorce attorneys. So this has kind of gone back and forth. It's been an ongoing thing, whether or not they're in or they're out. It sounds as if they tried to solve it, is what it sounds like. That's my initial take when I read it. So here's my question to you. I just read a timeline of their divorce. You and I know that they're heading towards divorce without anybody actually announcing it or filing for it. Here's my question. Most people get a divorce. I'm not going to say it's a private matter, but there is an idea of if you're not saying anything and the other person isn't saying anything, you can pretty much do it in the privacy of your life, your space. And then when it's time to announce it, or when you feel like telling people, you can kind of do that thing. Celebrities really don't have that because of how public it is and because of the media and the right to know laws and all these different things. They can find out if you're getting a divorce before you even really know if you're getting a divorce, just as simply as putting an attorney on retainer. So my question to you is, does this make it easier or does this make it harder? I think I know where I fall on this, but I have never been married. I have never been through a divorce. I am a naive little puppy when it comes to this. So I'm curious of your opinion, or would you like me to give mine first?
Well, it's interesting, but just to lead up to it.
Yeah.
Everyone always assumes it's harder.
Okay.
You're the first person that ever posed, because as we talked about it before we went on the air, you're like, I'm going to give you my preface, but I'm not going to tell you my thoughts.
Yeah.
You're the first person that ever posed it might be simpler because it's public. I will say this. I know when my ex and I split, I went to work. I was working in a big real estate office, and I told 3 people because it's just not something first of all, you're not proud of it.
Sure.
Because you kind of feel like a failure. And I went in and I told my 2 bosses and my best friend at work, who was my assistant. And it was then I had someone, because it was in the winter, and I had another agent, a female agent, telling me this thing that I should get for my wife for Christmas because she'll love it, and blah, 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 and kept going and going. But she didn't know.
Sure.
And then after the whole the one my friend overheard and told her, and then she apologized. But I had people 7 months later coming up and saying, "Oh, I heard you split up." I had people years later, maybe not, but who you never see, used to go to church with, you grew up with, who would come up and talk to you, had no idea.
Yes.
So there is that kind of that awkward that you keep revisiting. You're like, "Oh, we're not together anymore." Then they gush and say, "I'm so sorry." And then you say, "It's not that bad. It's for the best." It's blah, blah, blah. So I will also say this. I'm guessing to a degree, it keeps it cleaner.
Yes.
Because all the nastiness and all the horrible things that get said and maybe done in a split or in a bad relationship or in a divorce are mostly done under the guise of, I can say this and nobody's going to know.
Yes.
Because there's also, when you get in, like, it's embarrassing, you know, like, she said this to me, but I'm not going to come in and tell my friends because it's embarrassing.
Yes.
And I don't want to air my dirty laundry. Now, some people, when they go through, they air all the dirty laundry. Some people air none of it. So I think depending on if you knew that everything you said and did could end up in the New York Post, you're probably going to be more diplomatic about it. So from that aspect, it could keep it a lot cleaner. So it is an interesting premise you bring up. No one's ever brought it up to me before. So now that I've laid it out there, I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
No, I think it's easier. Now, again, this is a naive opinion. I think it would be easier. I think long-term, way easier. Because no one, like the things you just described, no one is doing that 6 months from now. No one is walking up to Tom Brady 6 months from now and saying, "How is Giselle?" He doesn't have to deal with that. Like, it essentially rips the Band-Aid off is what it does. I also agree, like, what you said was pretty spot on about, I think it allows you to realize we're doing this now. We're ripping the Band-Aid off. And so anything that I want to say, I got to say it now, because anything after, it's either going to be leaked. I'm going to have to say it in a public forum. Like, it's not. So I think for them, divorce in a weird way is easier. And I don't think anyone ever looks at it that way. Because I think people look at celebrities and they're like, "Can you believe so-and-so has been married 5 times and divorced 4? And but a part of me is kind of like, in a way I can, because it almost makes it impossible for the divorce to stretch itself out. Like, there is no kind of like back and forth, or everyone's going to know. Everyone's going to hear about it. And now when I walk out the door, I am considered like a bachelor. I'm considered a bachelorette. Like, I'm a single person from the moment that this is publicly announced. There is no process of like getting there. So I actually think in a lot of ways, I'm not saying divorce is easy, but I'm saying that process seems easier to me than the other way around.
It could be. The other aspect of the celebrity divorce is, and I wonder if we see so many of them, because we talk about how hard it is for celebrities to divorce, or how hard it is for celebrity relationships to work. I guess there's new allegations here about the Angelina Brad Pitt, that it was not as clean as whatever. But I think maybe the other aspect of that is that celebrities divorce because they can both afford it. And how many people don't get divorced when they want to get divorced? And if they're like, "If I won the lottery, I'd be out," but they can't, and they don't have family to go live with, or they don't have options. So they stay in this relationship as a business transaction. So,
so are you saying easier or harder? I can't tell. I'm leaning easier.
There's a lot of it that would be easier. I'm not sure. You'd have to ask them when every move is public. Probably being asked about it every day that you walk down the street. Like, how are the kids handling it? How are this? Because So maybe that would make it harder.
Yes, I think long term it's way easier.
I'll bet.
Short term, if you wanted to make the argument to me that it's close or that it's, I get it.
Short term, there's good and bad. But you're the first person to ever brought up. There's probably a lot of good that you don't have to explain to people because everyone already knows.
And I think that's I understand that within their own lives. I don't think it's easier. Like I think relationships.
It's still there's still people.
If you just view it from the idea of that it's public knowledge, would people's divorces be easier if it was immediately public? Think this is a bad example. When we bought the house, we sent out these address things, and I was kind of like, why are we doing this? And she's like, because now when people ask us for our address, we don't have to. No one's going to ask us for our address. They have it. They know we got a house.
Sure, they will. They're going to lose it.
But the point that I am making is, imagine.
No, I get it.
Wouldn't your life be easier if you kind of did that for divorce? If it was just kind of it was public,
divorce
and people knew,
no, I get it.
And now it's you don't have to answer the questions or deal with that.
What is the etiquette for the next time I run into Tom? How long do I have to let it pass before I was like, hey, can you give me Giselle's number?
He's gonna say who? That's what he's gonna say. Thank you to Weis Markets for sponsoring the Midday Show. Be sure to get your grocery rewards, your gas rewards at any location. Weis Markets. You used to go 4 times a week. I don't know how many times you go now.
No, I just don't talk about it. I go a lot.
Okay, I knew you used to go all.
There's lots. I go a lot.
Hopefully we won't step on your minute of uninterruptedness. I wanted to ask you this because everyone's going to talk about Aaron Judge and the home runs and everything else. I want to talk to you about what is worth cutting into TV. There is a huge debate right now. College football fans around the country are really upset because their football games kept getting cut into to watch live coverage of Aaron Judge trying to hit home runs, which there's a couple of caveats here. The first caveat being, it is a record, but it is not a league record. It's not a league-wide record. It is a conference. I mean, I guess you don't call them conferences.
No, I don't call them conferences.
But it is a conference record. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yes.
Okay. So we should add that. College football fans, very upset. Games being turned off in order to watch Aaron Judge bat. I know there's a lot of Yankee fans in the country. I would also say there's a ton of people that are not Yankee fans in the country. Your opinion as a Yankee fan on Aaron Judge, was Aaron Judge live TV cut in worthy?
Again, good question. What I think, I read posts about this, that Major League Baseball did not do well by making sure America had access to the Yankee games as he got to 59 and 60 and 61. That it should, whether it was the MLB network, whether it was whatever. Now, again, on the flip side, the Yes Network there are people that pay big rights to have exclusiveness to it. And so I get the financial aspect of that too. It's a marketing thing. I don't know. I can certainly understand. I know they did this with Hank Aaron back in the 70s, and this is probably where it started, when Hank Aaron was chasing Babe Ruth and they cut in. It's a different world now. That was 50 years ago. And I can see, whether you're watching anything, if you're not a sports fan and you're watching a TV show and they cut in and you just missed,
I think that's what's interesting about this, though, is most of these complaints are coming from people that you would expect would either appreciate or want to see Aaron Judge hit the home run. And they're kind of like, this is not worth it. This is not a reason to cut into the thing that I am watching. And that's what's interesting to me.
I'm with you. I think Major League Baseball should have figured out a way to make it accessible. But I can understand. I mean, we live in Penn State country.
Yes.
There are people watching Penn State. Who did you just play? Central Michigan? Northwestern. Penn State, Northwestern in an ugly game in a rainstorm. But if you'd have taken it off, that there are people that they live for these 12 Penn State. Sure. They're the most fun that they have of the year. The 12 Penn State games and then a bowl game.
Yes.
And I get why a lot of those people were upset. I do. So I don't.
Do you think people outside of Yankee fans care about Aaron Judge hitting 62 home runs?
I think I think baseball fans care.
Okay.
But it was just like you said, it's kind of a record, it's not a record. Then you get into the whole steroid debate. It was a great story.
Mm-hmm.
Is it? And in baseball terms, like he's had a historic season. Well, there's guys in the NFL. Cooper Kupp had a historic season.
Right.
Like in the NBA this year, someone's going to have a historic season
Right.
because of their assist to turnover ratio or some. There's always historic seasons. I don't know if it's cut-in worthy, especially when you add to the fact. Like, I don't think the Braves were very good when Hank Aaron broke the record.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to see Aaron Judge.
Mm-hmm.
He has a best of 5 series coming up that
Sure.
you assume he's going to win that, and then they're going to go to best of 7. You know, Aaron Judge's season is not over, and he is ready for the bright lights.
So what is, just to kind of like step aside from the baseball aspect of it, I remember being in the kitchen, and I vividly remember the Rockets-Knicks being cut off and some white car being shown driving down the road. And I walked out of the kitchen and I went, because back then we had like I walked out of the kitchen and I walked into the living room and I said to my mom, something's wrong with the TV. I can't get the basketball game on. First time ever in my life. And I vividly remember that. And it was obviously O.J. Simpson's white Bronco going down the road. In hindsight, I kind of get it. Like, I kind of understand. So my question to you is like, A, like, do you remember anything like that happening? And B, what do you think is like the Mendoza line for like,
well, that's interesting.
Cutting, because what's funny is like the Aaron Judge thing, to me personally, the Aaron Judge thing's absurd. I don't understand it. I don't get why it would merit cutting a live television feed. I don't. I'm not there. But for whatever reason, the O.J. Simpson thing to me now, so like to me, it made perfect sense that they cut off what I was watching. So I'm just curious where is the line and why?
Well, to get whether it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
From the baseball standpoint of the guys who had broke the Sosa McGuire chase, they both ended up in the steroid scandal.
Sure.
The Barry Bonds broke that record, who ended up in the steroid scandal. Yeah. So this would be, arguably the first clean one. I get it, but that's their story. Whether I thought the Bonds chase was awesome. I thought the McGuire Sosa chase was awesome. So I get that, but we discuss it here. We were just discussing a story here too. Like, we have our North Central PA region, but people in North Central Pennsylvania care about stories that are outside, whether it's in Wilkes-Barre or whether it's in Pittsburgh or whether it's in Philly, or even, we ran yesterday the AP story because we're an AP affiliate. Mm-hmm. We ran that Loretta Lynn passed away, the coal miner's daughter. And that's because just because Loretta Lynn wasn't from here, too many people in our area that has interest.
Yes, but there's a difference between being interested and being interrupted.
And I get it.
Okay.
So the big wigs at the thing were saying O.J. Simpson trying on the lamb in the white Bronco is it bigger, and they made that decision. People are saying, is Aaron Judge O.J. Simpson? And that's the decision. And
I think people were wrong, I guess, is what I'm
I would not disagree with O.J. They were right.
But that's, I guess,
Aaron Judge, I would probably say they were wrong too.
But I'm trying to figure out like what would be I'm trying to figure out like what is the line for that. Like, people in rooms must have meetings, and they must have like once a year they must sit down and be like, if X happens, we go live.
Well, I don't think once a year. I think it's a case by case basis.
Right, but I'm saying there's
split screened it.
I'm saying there's a meeting a year. Like, they must sit down once a year and be like,
it's not on January 1st.
Right.
I understand.
But I'm saying they must sit down and be like, here's the criteria. Like,
couldn't they have split screened it?
Probably.
Because that would have worked.
But I think for a lot of people, even that is kind of, because that now you're not getting the audio, you're not getting the full, like, I just don't, I think if I have made a choice that this is what's on my screen, if you're going to come in and say, no, this is the thing that you're actually supposed to be watching, I would just say you have to be really, really sure about that. And I understand it's sports. Like,
but they can't, but the issue is they can't get it anywhere else. It's not like it's on ESPN. We're going to cut it into ABC. It's if in your market, you can't get it. I would say this for all the college football fans and whatever. I get it, and I know, especially in the SEC in the South, that college football is its own religion. But if they would have split screened it, and there would have been a lot of eyeballs bouncing back and forth. Even the people who are locked in on the Alabama game or locked in on the Georgia game, whatever. It's just a couple pitches and a couple swings. It's not very long.
I guess.
So but to take the whole thing off, I get it.
Yeah. It would be difficult. It's weird. It's a weird.
I'm agreeing with you is what I meant.
I
agree
that.
with you.
It's interesting talking to you about it because I feel like you're one of the only people that regardless of what I change about the situation, you're such a baseball fan that you would still. So like if I said he played for the Blue Jays, if I said it was a triples record instead of a home run record.
Barry Bonds was a giant, and it was awesome.
And that's, I feel, yes. And so I feel like I can't even do those like mind Jedi things of like,
but because it was a Yankee, it's different. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it.
Shout out to Blaise Alexander real quick before we go to afterthoughts.
Oh, we're at the afterthoughts already.
No, we're going to do marks on our own.
Blaise, that's true, and I wrote it down so I didn't forget. Blaise Alexander family dealerships all over our region. As I said yesterday, I bought my car in State College because it was I wanted a stick, and it was a Mazda, and they have it. One of the beauty about the Alexander dealerships is if they can find it, because now and so many cars are ordered, whatever they have your dealership wherever, or they have your make and model. If you want a Subaru, if you want a Mazda, if you want a Chevy, if you want a Ford, they have the dealerships and they can shuffle around and find the car you want wherever it is. You may have to order it. You may have to wait a little bit because that's the era we live in. Yeah. But
thanks to Blaise.
Thank you to Blaise.
All right. This is the moment everyone's been waiting for. Mark's minutes of uninterruptedness. Which, by the way, I did look up, and uninterruptedness is not a word.
We made it a word.
Yes, I agree.
Because we're almost Emmy-nominated, we can have that.
Yes.
So I did one of the things to play off of the judge thing that I read an argument online about. Is it more impressive than what Roger Maris did 61 years ago? Because all pitchers throw harder, they have this, but Judge has better nutrition, he has better training, he has better video study. And to take it away from sports, there is this classic debate of old movies and new movies. There is old music, new music. But I think sports and kind of film television, because we look at the special effects and look how bad the special effects were. But us old people tell our kids, but at the time, it was awesome. And so the question that my afterthought is, why do we have to have a better or a worse? I love the debate. And the debate rages on. Aaron Judge, there are many things more difficult about what Aaron Judge did. But there are many things Roger Maris had that were more difficult. He probably had a job in the offseason and couldn't just work out and hit in the cage. And he might, depending on where he lived, it might not even been warm enough for him to hit in the winter. He might not have picked up a bat for 4 months. So, but why in our simplistic mind do we have to say better or worse? Why do we look at E.T.'s special effects and have to say, oh, God, they sucked? I just don't get why one has to always be better than we have to prioritize. And why, as humans, can't we just appreciate what they were at the time and great but different? That's my afterthought.
There you go. That was good. You know what I liked about that is I am that person. I rank almost everything. There's like a hierarchy and a ranking, and I enjoy trying to justify it. I like trying to have my feet in both shoes, like the Judge Maris thing. I would be the person like you said, Maris probably didn't have orthotics. Like Maris probably had to work. Like he probably didn't have the things, film study and all this stuff. Like how often do you think Roger Maris got to see himself swing a bat?
Oh, rarely.
Yes, like those types of things. However, I would also be the person that's like, there's no way Roger Maris is better than Aaron Judge. And so it's just that I love that debate. I don't know if I can live in a world without that debate.
Oh, I love the debate too.
Right.
It's the people that have to have an answer.
Okay.
And that's the whole.
I don't need a definitive answer, but I need I like trying to figure out what my opinion is and then trying to justify it. And it's not even that I think I'm right. It's just this is the conclusion of where I have fallen. Like this is where I've landed.
No, I get it. And I like to understand that there's always another side. And like, what is the other side?
Yeah.
Because they throw harder. It is the actual in the box is tougher for Judge now. But he can go in, he can go in and watch video of his first at bat, see what the pitcher did. He's studying video of the pitcher. This is the last time he pitched. This is the time before he pitched.
Yes.
So yes, there are lots of technical his support system is way better than Roger Maris ever had.
There was a piece on, because I want to go through the comments here in a second. There was a piece, I think it was on The Ringer maybe. I forget where it was, but the piece did a study on how many ball fields back then didn't have the backdrop.
Oh, so the pitcher's eye that they call it, the batter's eye.
Yes. So essentially, like, you weren't swinging into like a blank green or like whatever. It was just the sky and the backdrop and how much harder it was to see the ball. And they did this whole study trying to figure out, like, how would you adjust today's averages and statistics if you didn't have the batter's eye behind every pitching mound?
Yeah, these are all fascinating. And how many baseballs they use. Like now, anything, they get rid of it.
Yeah.
But because after you've hit a baseball a couple times, it gets mushy.
Yeah.
And they don't fly as well. Like you'll see if you're like at a high school field watching batting practice and a kid looks good, it sounds good, and it dives 10 feet in front of the warning track.
Yeah.
You're like, well, with a game ball, that's a home run.
Sure.
With a batting practice ball that's becoming more and more like a marshmallow, it just won't fly anymore.
Sure.
So, yeah, there's lots of, but I think in all, I just see in movies and special effects and dialogue, and I'll be one of the first ones to say I don't like a lot of old movies because the dialogue nobody talks like that anymore.
Brutal. Yeah.
And I was trying to be more polite about it.
You know
just come out with brutal. But sometimes it's like, is this really how people spoke?
You know what bothers me about old movies? This sucks because I'm ruining a good transition. But what really bothers me about old movies is staging. Like where people are standing and how because they just hadn't figured it out yet. And so you always get people standing in awkward positions. And I'm just like, no one would stand like that. I'm like in a group of 5 people, nobody would actually stand and face this way. And so like they just hadn't quite like pieced it together, as opposed to like when you watch something now, it's so well thought out of where people are standing and their movements and how people react to a sound or people. And just when you watch old stuff, it's like things happen and nobody adjusts, like nobody like flinches, but it was because your face had to be facing it. I really struggle with that with old movies, which sucks for me because it takes away, because I know some of these movies are really good and all I can watch is the staging.
And you're just so negative you can't see it.
Correct. Yes, like that is the case. Speaking of negative, it's dumb because 73 is the record. I'll give you 10 seconds to rebuttal.
Well, I mean, Barry Bonds is the greatest player ever. We will always be left to know how much the steroids made him better. Well, I say the best, Babe Ruth, because what Babe Ruth did as a pitcher and stuff. But of the modern era, Barry Bonds is the best player.
I still go back to you had to hit the ball. That's my biggest thing.
Well, it helps on the recovery.
Yeah,
there's all those other aspects, but there were lots of guys doing it. And the things that it's the Lance Armstrong-ish. Yes. Everyone was blood doping, and he was still the best in the world. So you can't just say it was the blood doping.
It just cracks me up because baseball people will argue with me all the time. There's nothing harder in the world than to hit a major league pitch. You have no idea how many times I hear that argument.
I get it.
Okay, but then in the same breath, they will tell me, like, well, he did steroids. And I'm like, well, wait a second. You just told me the hardest thing in the world is to hit a baseball. So did he hit the baseball or didn't he? And like, regardless of steroids, if the dude's hitting, if his bat, like the way Barry Bonds hit a baseball and his batting average, how difficult it was to pitch to him, I just can't imagine that you're upset he took steroids because you're telling me the hardest thing is to make contact.
Well, he was a great player. When you look at some of his numbers in Pittsburgh, he could run. He was a skinny little guy, but he was 25 home runs. Like he was a great player before steroids.
Yes. You know why? Because he could hit the baseball.
Because he's really good.
Yes.
He's the best player.
Yes.
Yes. So anyway.
You got to do it like Gwyneth Paltrow and Chris Martin. I believe they called it uncoupling.
I just read before we start, the Coldplay guy, Chris Martin, they had to cancel a tour with lung infection.
Okay. Oh, that's right. You did just.
I just said that right before we went on the air. I was like, "There's something wrong with," and they got me in major health. The way they made it sound, I thought the guy was, but he has a lung infection, which doesn't sound good, but I don't think it's terminal. Yeah. So anyway, but yes, uncoupling.
I don't know. It's unsettling.
I used to joke with when my wife and I were still together. I said I wanted to say was designated for assignment or was given his unconditional release, because that's what they do in baseball when a guy is left off the roster. Like in football and basketball, they just get cut.
I see what you're saying.
But in baseball, he was designated for assignment or given his unconditional release. Those are the two. So anyway, be that as it may. Uncoupling.
But isn't some of that too? Like in baseball, you actually have somewhere to go. Like in basketball,
you can go to the mine. Yeah.
Like basketball, you get cut. Like you really are cut. There's.
Well, I've made this joke too, and since you're not married yet, maybe I've said to people, marriage should be a 5-year lease with 5-year renewable options. That at the end of 5 years, you're like, hey, is this working? What do we want to do? It's not really.
That kind of ruins the whole "till death do we part" though.
Till death do we part in 5-year increments.
Okay. I like it. Listen, you know me. I would be all for it. I actually think it's one of the better ideas I've ever heard.
I think you should change your tune, because I think the person who will like it more than you is your girlfriend.
You think so?
Because after 4 more years, she might be like,
why are you
time to upgrade.
Why are you so astounded that like she wants to lock like this down? Like, why does that? Why does that disturb you?
I don't think it doesn't disturb me. Okay. Astounds is more of the word. I don't know.
Just something about it.
I don't know. Something about the negativity.
All right. Anything else before we head out today? It's okay if you don't. Just offering you. I just always like to offer you last word if you want it.
Well, I was
trying to be polite.
Isn't it? Oh no, we're not looking at.
We can talk about National Newspaper Week.
We'll talk about that tomorrow. I think we're going to talk about Herschel Walker a little bit tomorrow, because we need to learn a little bit more about what's going on. But he has obviously become a fascinating story. I was going to be really pumped if it was Phillies Mets. Starting in the first series would have been a blast for our area, but it's not. They would have to win some to get there. Okay. But your Braves came back, and the Mets are a wild card. So the Phillies will open against the Cardinals. A lot of red to start out. But it does make it fun. The Phillies in, the Mets in, the Yankees in for our region. It just adds the extra layer of excitement for fall baseball.
Yes. Here, we should talk about this real quick. I just renewed this weekend. The paperwork wasn't as bad as I thought. Here, I told you about this. We were going to Penn State. So I was at Penn State.
Is this renewed his 5-year lease?
Yes, he renewed his 10-year lease.
What does she think? That's the question.
That is the question. So we went to Penn State. They were obviously playing Northwestern before the monsoon got there, because it started down.
You didn't sit through the rain.
We did not sit through the rain.
Okay.
However,
I know somebody who did.
Oh my god!
I was like, let me guess. You were soaked. And he could not come up with an adjective to describe how wet he was.
So I'm trying to think how I want to. I guess I'll start from the beginning, just chronologically do this. So first of all, I had not been to a Penn State football game, like trying to park around the stadium, since I was in college. So we're talking like 12 or 15 years. Ever since I graduated from college, what I typically do is I will park downtown near like the bars, walk all the way up, and then tailgate. And then when the game is about to start, I will walk down with a friend or two, and we will go to the bars, watch the game, and then wait for everybody to kind of flood back downtown after the game if they win.
Okay.
Then the car's right there. You can leave. You're ready to go. Designated driver, you're on your way. My thing is, having never been around trying to park near the stadium, it's completely changed. You can't. Everything is paid parking now, lot assignment, number, ticket. I did not know this. So I drove around up by the stadium for 20 minutes trying to find like the designated field where they just turn you in and park you. It does not exist. It's not there. If someone knows where it is, please comment.
So
and
you're
let me
saying
know.
if you don't have a paid parking pass before you go, you are...
Yes. And again, I had no idea, because in
You didn't
college, like, you pulled up, they put you in a grass field, you
Lots
got
of
out,
things
life was
happen.
good.
Life is different than when you were in college.
Life was good. So we ended up parking all the way down by like a hotel. We walked up. It wasn't that bad. So we're walking up to the tailgate, light drizzle on and off, not a big deal. Most of the day, like from like 11 to 1, ended up being beautiful. Really, really nice. So at noon, we did, actually, it might have been 11. We did a vow renewal for my cousins. 10 years. We went up to the stadium where the big Penn State.
She
brick
was a
sign
willing
is.
participant in this?
A willing participant. I will shout out HB Officiate Services did the vow renewal. So if you're looking for that. And then we did it. It was really, really neat, really awesome to be a part of. Walked back, we tailgate, had a great time. We were getting ready to leave a little after 1 o'clock, and we started walking towards the car. I'm not kidding you. We got in the car, we closed the door, and within 15 seconds, it was a monsoon outside for the next probably half an hour in Penn State.
So you're saying that Mother Nature was rooting for this vow renewal?
Yes, it was. The gods and the earth said yes. 10 more.
There you
years.
go. 10 more weeks of winter.
10 more years of happy marriage.
You know, I was going to say this, and I don't know if we're kind of gone too long here, but as you talk about modern and from college and whatever. Mm-hmm. So I said the other day, we were parents' weekend at my daughter's college. She goes to Vassar, which is in Poughkeepsie, New York. And originally Vassar was an all-girls school.
Okay.
And it's been co-ed for like 60 years. But the dorm that she lives in is older. The dorm that she lives in is almost 100 years old.
Okay.
So nowadays, and it's a very liberal arts school, and they have co-ed bathrooms.
Okay.
Or is that what? It's not called unisex. What's the term I'm missing? But everyone uses the same bathroom.
Unisex. Okay.
And
multi-purpose?
No. But anyway, whatever it is, everyone uses the same bathroom. And my daughter even brought up a good point. She said, well, at the beginning when it was built, they didn't need men's and women's bathrooms because it was just a girls' school. Okay. So they only had one bathroom on each floor anyway. Gotcha. I don't know what they did in the meantime from when they probably had by floor would be my guess, men's and women. But now, so it is, everyone uses gender neutral. Okay. So everyone uses the bathroom. So they're all, obviously they're all stalls with big doors, like whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I go in and use the bathroom, 50-year-old guy. I go wash my hands. And on the way out, I'm still in the bathroom heading towards the door. Okay. Walking in the door and passing me in the bathroom was my daughter's roommate, who that day was her 19th birthday. Okay. And it was, to say for someone my generation, to say it was different. Yeah. To be like, hey, how are you, Beck? She's like, I'm good. How are you? And we just walk by. Now, to them, it's all they know. Sure. They've been doing it all semester. They've been doing it however long. I know it's a freshman, so it's, but like, as it will take some getting used to. Sure. For people like us to be just like, oh, and so it's different. It's now, and you're younger, so there's lots of these things that aren't as drastic to you as it was to me. But I'm sure there's a lot of, because we've all been to like mini markets or gas station bathrooms, where it's unison, but there's one, you go in and lock the door, and there's a line outside. Right. You're not all in the bathroom together, coming and going. Sure. It's different. It was different.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely unique. Anything else before I close this out? That was a good one.
No, we are bracing for playoff baseball as the weekend comes. Penn State is off this weekend as they prepare for Michigan. Yeah. So in the college football world, everyone here, this is the calm before the storm. So they get filled with Phillies and Mets baseball. The Yankees are off this weekend too. But they're filled with baseball as they get ready for what would it be, 10 days, 11 days from now. Right. Penn State, Michigan is going to be a blast. It's going to be a blast.
All right. So maybe some Herschel Walker tomorrow, and then maybe some National Newspaper Week tomorrow as well.
Yeah, and whatever else comes up.
All right. Well, thanks for watching the Midday Show. Thank you to Weis for being the title sponsor. And be sure to go to NorthcentralPA.com NorthcentralPA.com for all of your local news. I am Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina, and we will see you guys tomorrow.